Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Breakthrough Innovation. With us today is Andrew Miller, a problem solver, tech strategist, and business efficiency expert with a track record of optimizing complex business and analytics systems for healthcare, legal, and other highly regulated industries. Andrew has worked at companies like IQVIA and Patent Forecast, where he's automated workflows, optimized data ingestion, and saved hundreds of hours of manual labor, all while navigating the complexities of compliance, security, and large-scale systems integrations. His ability to boost software performance by 20+% is just one example of his impact. Beyond solving tough technical challenges, Andrew is passionate about mentoring teams, running interactive training sessions, and driving innovation through smarter technology adoption. He recently helped IQVIA's Analytics Center of Excellence adopt GitHub Copilot, transforming how 100+ engineers work. Today, we'll dive into how businesses can optimize their tech stacks, the importance of automation, and how AI-driven analytics are reshaping industries. If you're a business leader or tech executive looking for actionable insights on solving complex business problems with innovation, this is the episode for you. Andrew, I'm excited to dive into everything, and we're thrilled to have you on the show, so thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
So to start off, just tell us a little bit about yourself, your journey, and what led to your current role.
Yeah, absolutely. So ever since I graduated college, I wanted to help companies use software. And so I started in fintech. I was helping companies like Fidelity and Deutsche Bank. And mostly I was working on, rewriting old software, replacing it with modern software. And slowly I moved from fintech to healthcare and more recently into the legal field. And over the years, I got promotions and eventually now I'm at the CTO role at Patent Forecast. But I'm also a founder in my own business, and I'm looking to actually help more companies and kind of become a force multiplier for a lot of companies in tech, companies that leverage technology mostly.
No, I love the concept of a force multiplier. I think that's just a relevant topic in today's world when you start thinking about AI and all these other things that may seem kind of scary to a lot of people, but at the end of the day, the people who understand how to use them, they are going to become the force multipliers of the future. So I'm excited to dive into this. That said, I'm curious, when the companies you've worked with, what are some of the biggest challenges that they're facing when they're adopting AI-driven analytics? And what are some of the ways you've helped them overcome those challenges?
Yeah, so in my area, so healthcare, fintech, and legal, the biggest challenge is regulations and compliance and actually proving to clients that the software is secure and private. And that's the biggest challenge. There's other ones, but I think we can talk about this one because everyone will know about this.
For sure. I think, one of the biggest things I hear about ChatGPT, Copilot, whatever it is where is my data going? Right. And I know, like, for us, we use ChatGPT pretty extensively and we have it set up so our data, from what we know, is not being shared, but it's hard to trust that sometimes. So how are you helping companies kind of overcome that resistance?
Yeah, so it's not just overcoming the resistance, but really changing the mindset and the way people think about AI. And so some of the things that I've done is, in essence, standing up AI algorithms on premise so that they don't leak any data to outside because all of the data stays in your data center or in your on-premise environment. That's one way that I've helped companies in the past. But recently, I think with the push for cloud, there's sort of a resumed push for cloud, and a lot of companies are adopting it more and more. And with that, really, it's building awareness of companies about privacy and security of those cloud systems, because at the end of the day, they are operators of their system. And even though they tell you they will never lose your data, that's all marketing. And the reality is somebody else within their walls can leak the data. They can be malicious about your data. And so there's always that possibility. However, it's a risk management exercise. You have to look at your risks. And so the approach that I've been driving with my clients is actually automating the risk management process. So using, for example, tools like Drata that you can connect to all your cloud environments, to all of your device management systems, and they will give you visibility where you have gaps in terms of configuration. At least you'll be protecting the part of the equation that's you, because you control those systems. It doesn't always protect you from, negligence or problems on the side of the cloud vendor. But for that, we have other things like reputation-based approaches where we know that Azure might not be optimal for certain types of deployments in terms of privacy and security. So then we can recommend clients use AWS or use another vendor or altogether go on-premise. So it's really first trying to understand what the risk profile is and then building an advice based on that. But those are some of the techniques that we use to recommend.
Well, I like that. I mean, every business has a certain risk profile that they're managing, and putting it in those terms helps it feel a little bit more like something that they understand. So I think that's an important part of it. I am curious though, when you talk about this level of risk management, security, compliance, what impact do you see that having on a company's ability to innovate, especially in these regulated industries?
Yeah, so typically the way I do this is trace it down to financials, trace it down to metrics. So if you talk about just pure security or privacy, let's take security. If your platform gets hacked and you are down and you're making, let's say, X amount of dollars every hour, you can quickly calculate if you're down for a week, how much money you're going to lose, let alone, basically customer churn due to the systems being down or certain things not working. So that's one part of the equation. And the other part of it is also how clients perceive you, right? Your brand, that maybe you're not as private as some other companies. And that can also be traced down to financials, like how many sales are you going to be able to get? There's sort of you can quickly see that if you have this certain positioning in the market, that people perceive you as somebody or something that is maybe only 70% secure, you can then attribute that to financials and say, compared to the rest of the market, you're only making this much money through sales because you're losing sort of more within your sales funnel. So those are the couple ways that I typically talk to senior leaders within businesses.
And I think that definitely hits on the operational side of things. I know, like in regulated industries, as we see companies grow, a lot of times a company will enter, say, pharmaceuticals based on an innovative new treatment, therapy, drug, you name it. And then as they grow, the innovation that let them even enter the market in the first place starts to die off. I'm curious, in those industries, is there a space for AI to help continue driving that innovation, or is the security, the compliance, is it too much? Is AI something that companies have to be wary of, or can they embrace it?
So my experience, all of the companies that use tech and are innovating and they become successful years ago, they continue doing that. They don't typically drop innovation. What happens though is the scale, as you grow beyond certain scale, it becomes harder because, you just move slower as an organization. Yeah. And this is where I typically recommend technology that can optimize your process, that can sort of shed the waste and basically make something that takes 2 days, take an hour.
Right.
And that, in essence, allows you to still be nimble and respond to change quicker in the market. And in terms of innovation, for example, with the Copilot that you mentioned in the introduction, yes, you have a bigger organization, everything moves slower, you have maybe a little bit more process than you need to. But if you made your development team 20% more efficient, now you're back to the pace of innovation of some of your competitors that might be smaller size, but they're not using that technology. They might not be using it as much. And so it's really trying to sort of push the boundary as much as I can within the organization that I'm helping.
No, and that makes sense. And I'm curious, I'm sure you come across a whole mess of different types of resistance from leaders with varying levels of understanding of AI. When you're thinking about this, like, what is your approach to getting senior leadership, executive team buy-in when you're introducing new technologies and process improvements?
It's interesting because, in fact, most of the time, senior leaders they're on board. They want the latest and greatest. They want the fastest thing. The objections typically happen not with the what, but with the how. And because a lot of senior leaders, the way that they got into the field is they've been in the trenches, they've done it. So they have formed an opinion about how something should be solved. And it might not be the best opinion anymore because things have moved. And so most of the time, this involves educating senior leaders and other team members on here's how things changed since last time. Here are the benefits that you are going to get with this approach, but also giving options, saying that, I see that you're more sensitive to privacy concerns with the cloud deployments. We can use this option for on-premise, and there's 5-10 different options to deploy on-premise, for example. And so giving those options and explaining pros and cons, a lot of times it's interesting because I'll give a set of options and a senior leader will actually go for the one that I thought was the best without me trying to bias anything, because once you kind of break down the pros and cons, it becomes obvious to anyone, and it is a lot less subjective, in my opinion, because anyone can go and do their research and basically come up with the same.
No, that makes sense. And I like that idea of if you're just transparent and you lay out the choices, you're building trust at that point rather than trying to just promote. And I think that's a good thing to think about is if you go through and just say, here is the option, this is what you should do, that promotes a certain mindset that I know best, so you don't.
It's an interesting thing because I was taught to actually not provide options in the past.
Right.
Through my computer science degrees, that's the side that I was taught. This is the best option, what it is, just give it to your management. Once I got into the management, my training, because management training is you got to have options because you need to be able to respond to change and be able to accommodate certain situations. And so in my mind, I sort of had this shift, but I'm still a lot of times but this is the best option. And I should give it to the senior leader because I know best. But this is where I think, and some of my friends talk about this, is sort of the ego aspect where, you have to shed that and really understand that you're not the best person who knows everything. You are the person who can coordinate and do, kind of work with other people who do research and combine everything and provide options and facilitate the right change. And that's where really the skill is. And so, again, moving away from that situation of I know the best isn't always the answer. It's really, here's what I know. And I know I don't know the full picture because the senior leader, business leader that I'm working with, they have their own vision or things that they see that I'm not able to see. And so they need to have freedom to layer in their vision, their beliefs and values on top of my work. Otherwise, I give them no freedom, and that's not a very nice place to be.
Well, and so much of operating at a senior leadership level, let alone an executive level, is about the relationships. And part of maintaining those relationships is empowering people with choices. So to your point, taking away freedom, taking away agency isn't going to do much to win you trust. The other side of it, I think, from what I hear you saying, is part of the way you demonstrate your own knowledge is by giving relevant options and showing you've done your due diligence. So that helps build trust in you for in the future when maybe you do only bring one option. People will trust that, hey, no, he always does his due diligence. He always looks into the other solutions. So I think there's a lot there in terms of relationship building and team building. Love it. So Andrew, before we wrap up, what is your one piece of advice? What's the one takeaway leaders should have from all of this when they're looking to improve efficiency with technology?
Yeah. So as much as I talked about finance and technology, I think the biggest takeaway that I learned in the past couple of years is it's actually not as much about technology and finance, but it's more about people. And my advice would be actually look into your people first, and then the technology and finance will stem from that, because a person is a painting, if you will, and typically when you look at a painting, it's very deep and you see so many layers, and every time you approach it, you see something new, but you also, when you hear a story about it, you learn yet another thing. And so look at your people as a painting, and it will tell you a lot about your finance and about your technology and how you can then take the options that you're given in terms of technology, whether it's cloud, on-premise, whatever vendors you have, there's like a gazillion of them now, and then align that technology and the finances with your people, not the other way around, which is kind of what I've seen looking at other companies, reading news. That's what they try to do, and I think it's totally gonna bomb. And so we'll probably over the next couple of years we'll be seeing the outflow of that, because they started with technology and finance, not with people.
Right. No, I could not agree more. Honestly, that's another topic I would love to dive into if we had more time. That said, we don't. So, Andrew, what is the best way for people to get to connect with you and to collaborate with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So they can find me on LinkedIn, Andrew Vadim Miller. That's sort of the name that you can find me by on LinkedIn, or you can go to my company's website, qcelebrate.com. I have a contact form. Booking link is coming up, so you'll be able to book time with me as well. So those are the two easiest ways to find me.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate everything you brought to the conversation, Andrew. And I want to also thank everyone who has made it all the way to the end listening. Hopefully you found value in today's episode, and it's inspired you to leave a rating and a review on whatever platform you're listening on. Also consider, if you know anyone who can benefit from Andrew's knowledge and experience, share the episode with them, introduce them to Andrew, and share the value. Lastly, remember, go back through the episode, find that one insight, that one actionable insight, apply it, and then let us know how it goes, because as we've heard before, we value continuous improvement over almost everything else. So with that said, thank you everyone who's listening. Andrew, thank you very much. And we'll see you all next time on Breakthrough Innovation.